Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something you probably see every single day. It's this shining, glittering financial fairy tale that we literally all just accept without a second thought, the diamond engagement ring. Think about it. We've been told our whole lives that diamonds are the ultimate symbol of romance, of devotion, eternity. But how did a simple rock become so intimately tied to our deepest human emotions? Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if that ultimate symbol of love was actually just a carefully crafted corporate illusion? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most successful, wide-scale marketing deceptions in modern history. We're looking at exactly how a single cartel took a perfectly plentiful mineral and convinced the entire world that it was incredibly rare, deeply sacred, and absolutely mandatory for any serious relationship.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the financial fairy tale and then break down 3 distinct manipulative strategies: artificial scarcity, mandatory romance, and the resale trap. Finally, we'll look at the modern blueprint for value.
Part 1. The financial fairy tale.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the massive cognitive dissonance here. You see, up until the 1870s, diamonds actually were quite rare. But then, a massive diamond rush began in South Africa. Huge, highly productive mines were discovered, and suddenly, the market was just flooded. The global supply exploded. And, as a natural result of basic supply and demand, prices began to freefall. This abundance threatened to completely crash the market and strip diamonds of their luxury status forever. So to stop prices from tanking, a massive illusion was engineered. We have this culturally romanticized idea that diamonds are these incredibly rare, precious miracles of nature. But the stark reality? They're geologically plentiful. They're mined in vast quantities in places like Russia, Australia, Canada, Botswana. They really aren't scarce at all. They've just been carefully hoarded to manage our perception.
Which brings us to strategy 1, artificial scarcity.
To execute this artificial scarcity, enter a company called De Beers in 1888. They realized pretty quickly that to save their investments from plummeting prices, they couldn't just innovate. No, they had to conquer. Through sheer monopolistic force, they took over the global supply chain until they reached a staggering number: 90%. At its peak, De Beers controlled more than 90% of the global rough diamond supply. I mean, let that sink in for a second. This isn't just a strong market share, this is an unprecedented scale of physical monopoly. By controlling nearly all the mines and distribution channels worldwide, they gained absolute authority over exactly how many diamonds enter the public market at any given time. And this absolute authority allowed them to execute artificial scarcity. This essentially means stockpiling abundant resources and releasing them incredibly slowly to artificially inflate prices. It's kind of like a bouncer at a completely empty club making people wait outside just to make it look exclusive. This wasn't a natural market at all. These were cold, calculated boardroom tactics. They literally kept massive amounts of stones locked away in giant vaults. And if an independent competitor tried to buck the system, well, De Beers would just temporarily flood the market with similar stones, crashing the price just long enough to utterly crush that competitor before tightening the supply valve all over again.
Moving on to strategy 2, mandatory romance.
So, when the Great Depression hit in the 1930s, people naturally stopped buying luxury goods. Controlling the supply just wasn't enough anymore. De Beers needed to control demand. I mean, having a monopoly on a rock nobody wants to buy is completely useless, right? They needed a psychological trick to force consumers to buy their product no matter what the economy was doing. So they hired the New York-based N.W. Iyer ad agency to target the end consumer directly. Marketing expert Dan S. Kennedy points out something brilliant here. He says they took the radical move of ignoring inherent value altogether. Instead, they made it ritualistic and metaphoric. De Beers completely shifted the conversation away from what the rock was actually worth. Instead, they used movie stars, magazines, and even the British royal family to reinvent cultural traditions, transforming the diamond into a universally recognized token of romance.
And this brilliantly illustrates how they pulled it off. The result was this entirely invented new rule: an engagement ring should cost 2 months' salary. De Beers didn't just tell you to buy a diamond, they literally mandated exactly how much it should hurt your wallet. They successfully quantified a man's love, devotion, and even his self-worth into a highly expensive purchase, completely out of thin air, creating this massive, unbreakable societal expectation.
Let's look at how fast this cultural shift actually happened. In the 1870s, the diamond supply explodes. Fast forward to 1938, De Beers is facing that massive demand crisis due to the Depression. And then, the pivotal turning point. In 1947, a copywriter named Francis Giretti coins the legendary slogan, "A diamond is forever."
By tying a literally indestructible carbon rock to the concept of eternal love, they made the diamond deeply, deeply aspirational. So, by the post-World War II era, what was once just a rare luxury for the super elite became an absolutely mandatory societal norm for everyday engagements.
Now, for the most insidious part. Strategy 3, the resale trap.
See, De Beers had one massive lingering fear. Diamonds don't decay. They're the hardest mineral on Earth, so they're completely non-perishable. That means every single diamond ever sold was still out there somewhere. To stop a secondary market of used diamonds from destroying their monopoly and artificial scarcity, they engineered this incredibly stark contrast between the consumer illusion and the cartel's reality. We were told the purpose of the diamond was to be a sacred family heirloom, to cherish forever. But the reality? It was just a psychological trick to keep used diamonds off the market. We were told it was a clever investment that held its worth, but the cartel reality is that this romantic narrative was just masking the fact that the resale value of a diamond is practically zero. They convinced women, they convinced all of us, that reselling a diamond was a literal betrayal of sentiment, solely so they wouldn't have to compete with their own product.
To break down the mechanics of this brilliant trap, because diamonds are non-perishable, a steady production demands a steady consumption. And used diamonds absolutely threaten that monopoly supply. So by instilling this concept of sentimental value, it permanently prevents resale, which conveniently hides the total lack of inherent financial value. This campaign was so unbelievably effective that over 90% of diamond owners were successfully trained to measure their partner's devotion in carats and to just hoard their stones in jewelry boxes forever.
So the crucial point is really what this means for us today in Section 5, the blueprint for value.
This whole thing wasn't just about selling jewelry. It was about writing the absolute ultimate blueprint for perceived value in the modern era. They proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you control the story, you control the price. Now, maintaining a physical monopoly forever is incredibly difficult. De Beers skirted US antitrust laws for decades, operating internationally via the Diamond Trading Company, and they were even forced to divest their American assets in 1975. Eventually, by the early 2000s, they did slowly lose their absolute physical monopoly. But, and here is the absolute kicker, they entirely retained their psychological monopoly. The artificial scarcity and the emotional manipulation they engineered, that was all technically legal, and it remains an absolute masterclass in brand building.
Look at the market today. De Beers' actual control of the global rough diamond supply has plummeted to just 25%, meaning they share the top spot evenly with competitors like Alrosa. Yet despite losing that physical stranglehold on the mines, the cultural illusion they built remains completely 100% intact. The societal rule that you must buy a diamond to propose is literally as strong as ever, ensuring this massive, steady demand for the entire industry.
Which leaves us with this final, truly striking thought. Value is just a story we all agree to believe. De Beers proved that with enough psychological marketing and supply control, you can create a massively lucrative market out of absolutely nothing. I want you to look around at your own life today. What other luxuries or mandatory traditions are you spending your hard-earned money on? And how many of them are just well-crafted financial fairy tales? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always question the story.